Thank you for logging in and registering for the program. We will be starting shortly.
Very good evening, Mr. Jaspreet.
Welcome, sir.
Just about 2-3 minutes, we'll get started.
We also welcome our director. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Shoma.
Very warm welcome on behalf of State Bank Institute of Leadership for all those who have tuned in for this particular event, Blockchain Technology Unblocked. So nice of you to have found time to tune in for this particular event, wherein we have a wonderful speaker in Mr. Jaspreet Bindra. The proceedings will start sharp at 4 o'clock. I feel, all of them are still logging in, and we'll take it forward. There has been a huge response when it comes to registration. We saw about maybe yesterday close of the evening, somewhere nearly about 750 people getting registered. Maybe we still, generally on a given day situation that bankers decide, and we can still feel that, maybe at least 250, 300 of them will be getting benefited from this particular interactions. Dr. Shoma will be giving the honors as far as comparing for this program is concerned. You can take it forward, Dr. Shoma.
Okay, we are 1 minute ahead of time. So just let me quickly warm up and extend a warm welcome to all of you who have registered and logged in. Thank you so much. So namaste, good evening, and welcome to an engrossing session, as Sir has said, on blockchain technology unblocked. So at the onset, thank you, sir. We are fortunate to have you, Shri Jaspreet Bindra, who is a leading expert in digital transformation, blockchain, future of work, and AI. Welcome, sir. And I'm waiting for the clock to turn 4 before I invite our director, sir, to give the welcome address. So we are at sharp 4 now. At the onset, to set the event rolling, I would like to invite our director, Sir Shri Madhukar Anand, to render the welcome address. To introduce Sir briefly, Shri Anand joined SBI way back in 1985 as a probationary officer. In his diversified career spanning over 35 years, he has held the position of Chief Operating Officer of Nepal SBI Bank, DGM BNO Bangalore, and has headed 437 plus branches under Network 3 of the Ahmedabad Circle. Previously, he was part of the IT ALM Treasury project, where he led the team which redesigned the bank's transfer pricing system. This year, Sir has assumed charge as GM and Director of SBIL Kolkata. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shoma, Dean, Mr. Kumar, Dr. Kumar, and of course, the star of the day, Mr. Jaspreet Bindra. Mr. Bindra, if I can give a small introduction for him, he's a founder, Digital Matters India and Tech Whisperers Limited, UK. He's a Chief Tech Whisperer of Findability Sciences. He's an ex-CDO in Mahindra also. I was, just before this meeting started, I was watching his TED Talk on blockchain, which he had given in Chennai. And he started with his, incident that happened with him, between him and Mr. Anand Mahindra, who, referred the blockchain from a New York cab. So that is how he came to know about blockchain, and then one thing led to another. He's also the author of the book Tech Whisperer, and he's an expert in blockchain, AI, future of work, and digital transformation. Also a special invite to the cohort of executive participants of Indian Bank who are presently undergoing leadership development programs at SBIL. Fraternity of bankers and alumni of SBIL, my faculty and staff colleagues of SBIL Kolkata, and all the registered participants and those who could find time to tune in today. A warm welcome to all of you. On my own behalf, on behalf of SBI and SBIL, that is State Bank Institute of Leadership, I take immense pleasure in welcoming you all to this virtual panel discussion on blockchain technology, Unblocked. I might take a couple of minutes to explain the training architecture of SBIL, State Bank of India, for the sake of the uninitiated to the system. The elaborate training systems of SBI comes under the strategic training unit of SBI, which is housed in our corporate center, Mumbai. Under the STU's tutelage, 6 apex training institutions, which are verticalized in terms of domains and 51 state bank institutes of learning and development, SBILDs function in the entire length, throughout the length and breadth of the country. They are engaged in conducting relevant training programs for not only bankers of SBI, but also for other banks. SBIL requires special mention. To those who may not know about SBIL, it was started in September 2017 as an apex training institution, exclusively focusing its energy on the theme of leadership. It has premier status in our scheme of things, and towards that goal realization, it is engaged in training, research, and consulting in the area of leadership. While warming up for the program, we had played a video showing the campus and the infrastructure of SBIL. And you have to come here to truly experience the 7-star ambience that we have. Actually, it was designed on the lines of the Kellogg's Business School. Today's topic is truly intriguing in many ways. A layman's understanding of blockchain is it is an open distributed ledger that can be used for transaction between two parties in a verifiable and a permanent manner. Provenance is the word that Mr. Bindra has used in that TED talk. One of the the qualities or one of the conditions that have to be fulfilled. Trust and provenance. He has given the example of a chit fund on a large scale or a kitty party. It removes the need to have an intermediary in between, and all the parties involved in the transaction have the same copy. Out of the two types of blockchain, public and private, public blockchain gained a lot of popularity owing to cryptocurrencies, which are basically digital currencies or tokens. Blockchain is transforming many industries, be it through land record holding, which he referred to in his TED talk also, supply chain management, decentralized financing by fintechs, certificates awarded by universities, and so on. In India, greater adoption has been in the retail and startup sector. Still moving big projects to blockchain may not be immediately possible. Various initiatives undertaken by SBI during the last 1 year as part of the trade finance digitization through blockchain. I will read them out. Blockchain-based interbank information network of JP Morgan. We have successfully implemented JP Morgan's blockchain-enabled interbank information network services in our corporate account group's Mumbai branches for efficient communication between banks across geographies for payment-related messages. Under this system, we can send a query on any bank account across the globe to get the status before making outward remittances. If the bank to which that account number belongs are also in this network, then we will get the response based on which the transaction will be processed. Another is blockchain-based EBG, that is e-bank guarantees. We have conducted proof of concept of SWIFT India's e-bank guarantee. The initiative, along with e-stamping, will transform the way we carry out bank guarantee business. This initiative was carried out along with SWIFT India. We have also done blockchain-based platform iLognet for implementation of electronic bill of lading. Conducted first stage of POC for blockchain-based platform iLognet for implementation of electronic bill of lading, an initiative by Logistics Division, Department of Commerce. The initiative is under Digital India initiative of Government of India. Handshakes with other partners. Liaising with various digital platform provider in trade finance segment, Vayana, Bolero, etc. These platforms are capable to digitize trade finance transactions along with catering to supply chain financing. Engaged in discussion with leading blockchain platform, that is Marco Polo, HSBC, Contour, etc. for initiating blockchain-based technology in trade finance. SBI is in the process of revamping trade finance business by automating major processes. We are also in discussion with TriadStream for artificial intelligence-based document scrutiny for processing documentary credit transactions. So these are the outlines of what SBI is trying to do under blockchain. The key challenges that banks have to face is taking a strategic risk of being a leader in adopting the technology or wait till the technology matures. I welcome you all once again to this virtual conference panel discussion, and I'm sure you will have a wonderful time and you will have wonderful takeaways. Wishing you all the best in the days to come. Stay connected while being physically distanced. Thank you so much. Welcome, Mr. Bindra, once again.
Thank you for your valuable words, sir. I will now take the opportunity to introduce the moderator for today's discussion, Dr. Krishna Kumar. Sir is Dean at SBIL. As a career banker, he has more than 15 years of progressive banking experience with various profiles, wherein he grew from entry-level probationary officer in a multinational bank to a general manager executive level. He has headed risk and treasury functions in banks. As an academic, he has held academic leadership positions for nearly 10 years. As a consultant, he consults on risk management, restructuring, business, and policy. With those words, I hand you over the screen, sir, for the engrossing discussion to follow. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, my pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Shoma, for the nice introduction. And now it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Jaspreet, whom I happened to bump on in a conference a couple of years back before the COVID set in. And perhaps that is one of the last conferences we would have attended. And just to introduce, Cyrus already introduced the portion of it. I'll give you a formal introduction as far as Jaspreet Bindra is concerned. Is as informed earlier, Mr. Bindra is the founder of the Digital Matters in India and a Tech Whisperer Limited in UK, which does advisory and consulting work on digital transformation and digital technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, and the future of work. He also represents Findability Sciences, an enterprise AI firm, as their chief tech whisperer. He's a leading expert in digital transformation, blockchain, and future of work and artificial intelligence. He was the group chief digital officer at Mahindra Group, a 20 billion conglomerate, and a regional director at Microsoft before that. He's the author of the best-selling book, The Tech Whisperer, on digital transformation and technologies that enable it, published by Penguin Random House, as well as the Immune Organization, Future-Proofing Organization from COVID-like Disruption, published by Amazon Westland. He was recognized as the inaugural Digitalist of the Year by Mint and SAP in 2017 and is a global moderator or educator for Harvard Business, a school in residence at the Indian School of Business. He divides his time between Cambridge and Gurgaon. He started his career with the Tata Group, and in fact, he was a part of the Tata Administrative Services those days, and is a chemical engineer and an MBA in international business. So, warm welcome to you, Mr. Jaspreet Bindra. And as we were discussing, Mr. Bindra will be initially presenting for a while, and then we will have a discussion based on that. Thank you. Over to you. Floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Krishna Kumar. You and Mr. Anand and Dr. Shoma have said such good things about me that first I have to bring myself back on earth. Okay, before I start talking, I wish, sirs and ma'am, that I was actually physically present in your. I can see the campus building as a background. Okay, but I wish I was physically present, and hopefully those days will come again, because that's the real way we could interact and have a conversation with each other. I'm also deeply honored that you have decided to have me speak to your people in India's premier bank. I also congratulate you on your latest quarterly results, which were quite amazing, if I may say so. I was kind of going through that. So thank you very much. Thanks for all the introductions. I do want to clarify. I just want to first excuse myself a bit. Part of the whole future of work is that it happens from home. I'm today alone. Sometimes there could be a little bell or so which might happen, and this future of work scenario, sometimes you have to interrupt your work and attend that if it's very insistent. So my apologies in advance if there's a disturbance. The second thing I want to talk is, you were right, Director Mr. Anand, that it was Anand Mahindra, your namesake in a sense, that who introduced me to blockchain from a cab in New York. And since then, blockchain has been my passion. It's not really my profession. Okay, almost 100% of my time goes in digital transformation, data, artificial intelligence, data science, and a few other things around that. But it's really my passion, because as we get into the few slides that I've just put together, I will explain why it's actually the philosophy of behind blockchain is actually far more interesting than the technology itself. And that's what drew me to it. And hopefully that will also fascinate you and all of you as you kind of study it more. It's also true that in many ways, blockchain is not today's technology, maybe not even tomorrow's technology at scale. It is day after tomorrow's technology because of multiple reasons. But and the final thing I want to say before I have shared my slides. Professor Krishnakumar, can you see the slides?
Yes. We are
You
able
can.
to see that. Yeah.
Okay, lovely.
Only, yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely. So, there's this tweet that I really like. Uh, you know, says that big data, blockchain, AI in corporate world is the same as Punjabi songs. Everyone knows a few keywords, but we still dance off its tunes as if we know the entire lyrics. Okay, that's what happens with technology today, and blockchain in particular. Unlike other technologies like artificial intelligence or Internet of Things or virtual reality, the words themselves explain what they mean. Virtual reality, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, but blockchain doesn't mean anything. And so, it's therefore perhaps the most difficult to explain. And while we know that it's going to be very big, as this graph shows, as I said, 25, 26, 27, 2025, 26, 27 are really going to be the years when blockchain comes into its own. And as the director said, you can take two views. One is, okay, we'll wait for it to come. Okay, or the other is, let's start experimenting and learning. And I'm so glad that SBI has taken the latter view of experimenting, learning, and that's how we should be looking at this technology. In many ways, and this would be very familiar with you, the blockchain the definition was given, and some of this will be from my TED talk, so I'm sorry for repeating myself. But this is a ledger, and ledgers, other than all of you bankers, we most of us consider ledgers to be very minor things. In fact, ledger is probably the most important thing. It runs the world. Okay, every asset, most of the money are actually nothing but entries on a ledger. It doesn't exist in its physical form. And I like to explain blockchain through this ledger analogy. There are a couple of analogies which I'll use. And pretty much like when you send $100 from JP Morgan branch in US to an SBI branch in India, the $100 doesn't reach as $100. It reaches as $94, $95, $96, and it takes 4-5 days. And the reason for that, we know our intermediaries like Swift and multiple other intermediaries, and they take time. Each of these intermediary has a ledger to balance, and that creates friction. It creates time. It creates cost. And the conceptually blockchain, as and Bitcoin, as it was conceived by Satoshi Nakamoto, the unknown person, in 2008, was really a universal ledger in the cloud, shared by everyone and managed by consensus and cryptographically protected. So instead of between JP Morgan and SBI, if instead of having 6 or 7 sequential parties, we had just one universal ledger in the cloud, and the transaction would only happen once everyone authenticated it, is really the very basic principle behind blockchain. And that's how it really works. Now, there's lots of complexity behind it. Different blocks get formed. They're cryptologically protected. Each block is immutably tied to the next block. And I'm not going to explain this now. As and when questions come, I think it will be better for me to. Otherwise, on this ledger slide itself, we will take the next 20 minutes. Okay, but the important thing is that these are the 4 or 5 different properties of a blockchain. Provenance, as the director was saying. Consensus is another one. Transactions happen only when everyone agrees or a majority agrees. Security, trust, just because it is an immutable chain. You can't go and change one transaction. You have to change the entire chain for that. And so it becomes much more difficult to hack, much more difficult to alter. It's immutable. And also multiple blockchains today are formed for what are called smart contracts. Those are if-then kind of logic which is put in the blockchain and makes it even more powerful than the way it is right now. I have a video.
Modern technology allows.
I just want to check, because rather than kind of spending a lot of time, I thought I'll show you a quick video. Dr. Krishna Kumar, I wanted to check whether you can hear this. If you can.
Modern technology
Yes,
allows
we are able to
people
hear,
to
sir.
communicate directly. Voice and video calls,
We are able to hear.
emails, pictures, and instant messages travel directly from A to B, maintaining trust between individuals no matter how far apart they are. When it comes to money, people have to trust a third party to be able to complete a transaction. Blockchain technology is challenging the status quo in a radical way. By using math and cryptography, blockchain provides an open, decentralized database of any transaction involving value, money, goods, property, work, or even votes, creating a record whose authenticity can be verified by the entire community. The future global economy will move towards one of distributed property and trust, where anyone with access to the internet can get involved in blockchain-based transactions, and third-party trust organizations may no longer be necessary. The uses of blockchain technology are endless. Some expect that in less than 10 years, it will be used to collect taxes. It will make it easier for immigrants to send money back to countries where access to financial institutions is limited. Financial fraud will be significantly reduced, as every transaction will be recorded on a public and distributed ledger, which will be accessible by anyone who has an internet connection. Think of it as wills and contracts that execute themselves, or dated proof of existence for ideas, much like a patent. Blockchain will become a global, decentralized source of trust, but not everyone is ready to embrace it. A huge proportion of trust services, from banking to notaries, will face challenges on price, volume, and in some cases, their very survival. Public authorities could find it more and more difficult to enforce traditional financial regulations due to the new possibilities offered by the Bitcoin network to bypass traditional financial intermediaries. Unimagined new networks will evolve to meet society's needs more cheaply and potentially more securely. Will governments, financial and legal institutions embrace blockchain? What will happen to the ones who don't?
So, I just thought I'll quickly show you a video which explains blockchain. But then I have, it still sometimes is difficult, and I like to try and explain it through my own patented way, which is the kitty party example, which was also referred to. So, you know what a kitty party is. Most of you would know a kitty party is where people women usually get together, they play cards, have fun, have some lunch, and gossip, etc. But they do also one more interesting thing. They all bring money. So if there are 10 women, each of them will bring 1,000 rupees, and this 10,000 rupees will become what is called the kitty. Right? And then there's a lucky draw, and one woman wins the 10,000 rupees, and she goes home happy. Next time there's a kitty party, the same event happens. Again, a lucky draw happens. The first woman who won last time cannot participate. So each block of kitty party, if you think of it as a block, is immutably linked to the last one. And the important thing here is that when they're putting these 1,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees on the table, the question is, who do they trust? There is no SBI there. There is no banker there. Okay, who do they trust? And the answer is that they don't trust one central authority. They actually trust everyone else. This concept of distributed trust rather than centralized trust is at the very heart of what is a blockchain. And actually, that is what I would like you to remember, that while it's about consensus, immutability, provenance, etc., blockchains really are trust mechanisms. And the other thing that I would like you to remember is that blockchains, by their very definition, break centralization. They are decentralized. So anytime, anything which you need to design and you need, where you're decentralizing something centralized, money, for example, then the technology framework that usually suits it best is the blockchain framework. So decentralization, distributed trust. These are the two mantras, in a sense, around which blockchain is formed. You know that in your sector, banking, finance, insurance, financial services, it's all over. Anything you think of, wallets, exchanges, brokerage. A lot of examples which were given by the director were about remittances and trade finance. Okay, and so there are multiple use cases happening, but most of them are still happening at a POC level, where people are still trying stuff out, okay, rather than doing things in scale. And around again, this is another way, because you're a financial company. I just showed a fintech kind of a thing. Abra is a company which I follow quite regularly. Abra, in fact, Mr. Ratan Tata has invested in it, and that has actually become a blockchain-based remittances company, which is doing pretty well and has managed to go beyond just POCs. There's another company called Everledger, which is doing things in provenance, in traceability, using blockchain, and they are working with diamonds, and so there are lots of use cases. But blockchain's use cases go beyond finance. They can be used if you consider anything else to be an asset. They can, and then they can tokenize those assets. So they can be used in energy, they can be used in identity. Blockchains are used for agriculture and supply chain across multiple use cases. This is a very interesting use case, which for lack of time, again, I'm not going to go describe, but if someone is intrigued, they can ask me, or you can ask me during the Q&A session, and I'll explain how electricity as a concept can be made distributed electricity rather than centralized electricity, the way we think about it. The important thing for you to remember, being the market leaders, being the largest bank by a vast distances, blockchain is an ecosystem industry, is an ecosystem technology. So you can't do it within SBI itself. You need to create an ecosystem, okay, of SBI or say JP Morgan or 4, 5, 6 other companies. And that's why most of the big blockchain use cases are usually first done by market leaders. So the biggest supply chain has been done by Maersk. Walmart and IBM team together to do traceability of fruits, mangoes, etc., back to the farm. And only Walmart could do it because it had the heft, it had the strength, it could get its suppliers onto the same blockchain mechanism. And so blockchain is a technology which is an ecosystem technology. Again, the details I can explain in Q&A, and is usually led by market leaders, and that's actually an opportunity for SBI here. In Mahindra, after Anand's fascination with the technology, what we did was that we used blockchain for a very interesting trade finance use case, which was around invoice discounting, and how we kind of use the concept of distributed trust to make Mahindra Finance discount invoices of not only Mahindra and Mahindra, but multiple auto players, because we demonstrated that using a blockchain, there was, these people could trust Mahindra Finance and trust the fact that it will not disclose their data to Mahindra and Mahindra, which was a sister company. So there blockchain are two things. Again, this is one of my favorite Dilbert cartoons on blockchain. Not everything is blockchainable. There's a tweet, another favorite tweet of mine, which says, the answer is blockchain. Now tell me the question. Okay, so every question doesn't have blockchain as an answer. Blockchain is still an early technology. While it has lots of advantages, it has still lots of problems. Scaling up is a problem, interoperability, talent, and again, we can dwell on those as we have our conversation. But the real uses, and these are my last 2-3 slides, and the reason why I'm passionate about blockchain comes across in these slides. The real uses of blockchain, in my view, will go beyond, say, a remittance use case or a trade finance use case or a whatever. It has the potential to create vast new industries. There is something which is called the creator economy, which is where or the passion economy, where individual creators can earn money, which is very difficult to do in today's setup. And there are great examples. One company called Go Social, in fact, in which Mr. Mahindra himself has invested. And then this whole new concept of non-fungible tokens, okay, which you might have heard of. All of these powered by blockchain, which can actually which can reward or monetize individuality. rather than make the big platforms rich, it can make individuals rich. And again, it'll be interesting to talk about that. But my two things which I want you to really think, and this is the philosophy. The internet was very good for us. We know that. Okay, the internet solved many problems for us. It solved our information problem with search and Wikipedia, Google, etc. It solved our distribution problem, e-commerce, music, video. It solved our communication problem, with WhatsApp and social networking and email. But there were two problems that the internet was supposed to solve, which it did not. One was the disintermediation problem. The internet was supposed to give us a level playing field, everyone being equal. The long tail would be empowered. The internet actually did quite the reverse. It made even far more powerful intermediaries than what existed before. Amazon and Google and Facebook. The other problem is no one trusts the internet, not even today. It could not solve the trust problem. The reason why people are very excited about the blockchain is that it can solve these two problems of disintermediation, individuality, and trust. And that is the reason why there is so much excitement and why people think that the blockchain going further is as big and can change the world as much as the internet did, if it is allowed to. And here is where I have a slightly tech slide, which is my favorite blockchain slide of all time. And it takes a slight tech view, but some of you will definitely understand it. This is the core difference between the World Wide Web and the blockchain. So if you look on the left-hand side, the World Wide Web, most of you would know, runs on a protocol layer called TCP/IP. You might have heard of these words, TCP/IP. TCP/IP is a very thin layer. It is a useless dumb layer. All it does is it takes packets of information and routes them to the right place. That's its job, nothing else. So it has no value. The value is by the apps which are created on top of it. Facebook as an app, Google Maps as an app, Amazon as an app. So the applications or the apps. So the World Wide Web has a thin protocol layer and a thick app layer. And the value is in the apps. And the apps are controlled by big companies. And the layer is free, it's useless. The blockchain reverses this. It has a thick protocol layer and a thin app layer. The protocol is the blockchain itself, and it has so many properties: immutability, security, trust, unhackability, provenance, smart contracts. And so the apps that you create on top can be very thin. They are called DApps, and they are very thin. And so therefore the value is in the protocol layer, and the protocol layer belongs to everyone, not one person. And therefore it distributes wealth. It decentralizes. And that's the beauty. And therefore, it's almost in some sense a socialist technology, okay, a slightly leftist technology. And that's one of the reasons why it will take time, because the world is increasingly getting centralized, while here is coming this technology wanting to decentralize. And we have to see which one eventually wins. And these are the philosophies behind the technology which drives people like me, innovators, etc., and saying that, look, blockchain is something which can actually really change the world and make it more equal. And this is what fascinates. This is why as I said, it's a passion. It's not really at this point of time a profession. So that's what I wanted to say, Professor Krishna Kumar. Obviously, I have to show my book, so I'm showing my book. But other than that, what I'll do is that I will now stop sharing my screen. And is my screen, is my sharing gone, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Lovely.
Thank you for that lucid presentation. I'm sure all the near about 200 people who got hooked today would have really benefited from the lucid way how you have made sense of blockchain technology. And of course, we are going to discuss a whole lot of things and see how we can take it forward. Let me start asking you, as you correctly said, for you, blockchain is basically passion than a profession, but your profession is majorly on digital transformation, isn't it? And that's the company that you run. And we all know that now the way things world is going, especially the post-COVID world, digital is business and business is digital. And it is all now being spearheaded by a whole lot of technologies, the AIML, as we said, it has become a slogan, whether people have understood the intricacies or not. Everyone has started talking about it. So, and now just on the sweepstakes of many of these technologies, blockchain also comes up as one of the major technologies, and there are a lot of prognoses that say about how things will evolve, how which technology would be finding adoption at a higher rate in these digital transformation initiatives of companies, and they bet on that, isn't it? And there is also a prognosis, then I think like blockchain might perhaps grow at the rate of 70% at all. Maybe because of the nature that it traverses various industries and sectors beyond certain specific like a 3D printing or some such thing. So perhaps those are the reasons. Just want to know how many of this. How do you see this, sir, as part of a technology, especially when we are talking about the digital transformation part of it?
No, thank you very much, Professor Krishna Kumar. In fact, that's the right way to look at this. Rather than looking at it from a technology viewpoint, it's better to look at it from a business viewpoint or a transformation view. What many of us seem to think that companies need to transform. Everyone, all of us agree, okay, fine, the world is changing. Companies need to transform. Everyone agrees on that. Okay, but most of us or many of us think that they need to transform because technology has come. There are these new technologies because of which, these startups are coming up and these new kind of companies and the technologies are whatever. And so because there's new technology, companies need to transform. That is actually, in my view, the reverse view of looking at things. Okay? Companies need to transform, frankly, because the customers have changed. Okay, and they've changed in multiple ways. And COVID, in fact, has brought about a further accelerated change. In fact, I call it the COVID paradox, where COVID has slowed down the world but accelerated change. Okay, and the multiple changes, I will not go into, but I'll give you an example. One of the changes that has happened is that the youngsters of today, see, when we were growing up, Professor, you and I think we are broadly the same age. When we were growing up, status was tied to ownership. You wanted to own your first bike and then your first car, second car, first house, vacation house, Rolex watch, whatever. Okay. And we felt good. Youngsters today, the customer today, the young customers, they don't really care about owning things. They'll rent a house, take Uber, rent furniture. Okay. When there's a party, they will rent a dress. Okay.
Shared economy.
Yeah, shared economy. Exactly. Why is the shared economy is happening is not because there's technology. The shared economy is happening because customers are changing. And this change in customers is happening across. And so because customers are changing, companies have to change and transform. The difference between now and 15 years back is that today we have some phenomenal tools to make this transformation happen. And these tools are these technologies. And the best thing about these tools are that many of them you don't have to buy wholesale. You can rent them. Okay, through the cloud, through pay as you go, etc., etc. So all of these, whether it's AI, which in my opinion is the single most powerful tool, okay, or blockchain, or IoT, or RPA, or 3D printers, these are all, I look upon them as amazing, amazing tools which are available to help us transform so that we can meet our customer needs. So that looking at it this way rather than looking at it from the technology standpoint. And so that's where digital transformation being the actual objective because of customer change or world change or environment change or COVID related change. I mean, if you see today, because of COVID now, people will not want to crowd malls. They will want more things to come to home. They will be little wary going to restaurants. And so companies will have to change to cater to that, and technology will help that happen, including blockchain. That's how I look at it.
Thank you for lucidly putting it. And
I have a question now that you're talking about, gig living, gig economy, gig living. Everything is temporary. How do we use this concept in this post-COVID world to improve the coverage of our virtual training efforts?
Director, you have asked a very good question. In fact, I believe that education has changed forever.
Correct.
Few things have not changed forever, despite our thinking so. They will come back. Okay. I firmly believe leisure travel will come back. Okay. And we will, in fact, people will want more leisure travel than what they had. But
Right.
education, I think, has moved forever, has changed forever. And I think that, and I cannot call myself an expert, but I think that we will now necessarily have to think of education and therefore training, okay, as a hybrid exercise.
Right.
The design of the next campus, if you were designing, okay, you would not design it as perhaps the campus you designed where everything was in-house. You would design it as a campus where certain parts of it happened in house and therefore smaller, and a lot happened outside. So if I were to give you a couple of examples, many universities in the US are moving towards a situation where they will have both classes and online, and you actually pay more. You pay say $50,000 for the in-class in-presence MBA, and you pay $3,000 for the virtual MBA, or if you want a hybrid, you pay something in between. And you could have 100,000 students at $3,000, while you will have 50 students or whatever it is at $100,000. The other example is that because of this, what is also going to happen is that learning, director, and this to me is more important than the other, COVID has made people realize that learning has to be continuous because the world is changing so fast. You need to learn newer things. You can't just be once you've done your MBA or whatever, you're done. So Harvard, for example, is now going to start what they call the 60-year MBA. You join at 20, you continue till you're 80, and every year you attend for 1 week, okay, or 2 weeks. And so, it becomes lifelong. So I think that all of these new things are coming in, primarily accelerated by COVID.
Thank you. Nice answers.
Thank you, sir. And you had already explained the layman's what is blockchain, and also I'll not peruse much on that. Perhaps when we were discussing about the various characteristics of blockchain, the consensus, provenance, immutability, and cryptography part of it, and all, we all know about the nodes and tokens part of it. Can you also throw some light on the fact that the blockchain, as you said, the capability of the layers, it is heavily on the protocol layer that the blockchain is driving on. Right? And when we are talking about the types of blockchain, the public blockchain and the private blockchain, and the in-betweens also, the hybrid form of it. Is it anywhere that any of these layers get sacrificed?
Yes, they do. So they do. Okay, so real blockchain and the real essence of blockchain is only in the vast public blockchains. Okay. So whether it be the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain, okay, because that is where all of these things of consensus, immutability, etc., are baked in right from the beginning, and they are not owned by anyone. Most important, they are not owned by one person or 2% or 5. They are owned by everyone, right? And all them out. Now, the problem, however, is that with public blockchain, with the technologies available, with the technologies available, the problem is that just because now these blockchains have become so big, okay, that any transaction takes a huge amount of time because everyone has to authenticate it. Yes. The example that I give is that if Facebook was on a blockchain, for one like, when you pressed a like, all the users would have had to say, the like is okay. And then only the like would happen. Now, what would happen to Facebook. Okay. So everyone has to authenticate. And so again, to give you a number, so the MasterCard or the Visa network, okay, is built for about 30 to 50,000 transactions per second. The Bitcoin blockchain can do only 8 transactions per second. Okay, and so it's impossible scalability. So because it's impossible, you can't therefore make things on it, enterprise stuff on it. And so enterprises have built this new thing called private or permissioned blockchains have come in. Though it is a public permissionless blockchain, Bitcoin or whatever. Private permission, the thing is, so people form a blockchain within 7, 8, 10 people within themselves. They are the nodes in a sense, and the consensus happens within those 8, 10 people. And stuff happens very fast. It can work, but the problem is then then the essence is gone. It's ownership of 8, 10, and if they collude, they can do whatever. Okay, so the real blockchains are the public ones, and you have to sacrifice some of the basic properties if you kind of move to a private blockchain. But today, with the state of where the technology is, there's no option but to make enterprise applications on private blockchains. Ethereum is the only exception. Ethereum is made for enterprise applications, especially smart contracts. But engineers and people who know blockchain would know that the cost per Ethereum transaction, while transactions happen reasonably fast, the cost per transaction is very high. And so it's not cost effective. And again, people have to move towards. Problem will get solved. There are lots of work happening, but so far that's where it stands.
So yes, thank you for that answer. And just to understand, who owns blockchain question is always comes up, isn't it? $1 billion question. I am reminded of the case studies what we would have all gone through, the KFCs and the cola wars, isn't it? They always say that the cola formula is there in some bank locker or some such stuff. There is another set of people say that itself is a hoax, and you really don't know where the truth is. Similarly, the old characters of Satoshi Nakamoto or many of these things, and if you could put some more clarity on where exactly the Bitcoin part of it. Of course, when we are transacting, you require a coin for that. And the moment you are talking about a coin, then Bitcoin or some such currency comes in there. If you could throw some more light on it, and where the regulatory, the RegTech part of it also get sort of entangled in the whole show, and the central banks of the world going back and forth, including in India right now, they are also talking about coming out with their own digital currencies and all. We need to really watch, how the whole development. Of course, it's a fact that people like you and so many other entrepreneurs who are working in the cryptocurrency part are doing the so much work for the world, on cryptocurrency, which is running cryptocurrency. So you could throw some more light on it. Perhaps the audience will be benefited.
Sure, absolutely, Professor. And I'll simplify it. Okay, it will almost be simplistic. So when you simplify things, sometimes you kind of lose some part, but I'll try and simplify so that everyone, gets on the same page. So 2008. So if you go back to 2008, I ask people what happened in 2008, and everyone says, "Oh, Lehman crisis." Okay, banks collapsed. What they forget is the first black president also happened in 2008. Everyone is so obsessed with money. Okay, but the Lehman crisis was really the genesis of Bitcoin and therefore blockchain. And the banks collapsed, and the feeling in America it was a moment of change in America with a black president, everything. The feeling was that these trusted central authorities, which we have reposed our entire financial system on, have failed us. Okay, all the things they were doing, leverage trades, etc., derivatives, all those things. So they failed us, and so we need an alternative. And that's where this paper came out in 2008. Again, 2008 was a remarkable year. Okay, which was written by this man, woman, set of people, an alien from Jupiter, whoever, we don't know who it is, okay, who called himself or herself Satoshi Nakamoto. And if you see that paper, and you can just Google for that paper, it is a very dense mathematical, very, very scientific paper. It's not one useless kind of paper. And basically, he set out the whole principle. He created this concept of Bitcoin. The blockchain people didn't know then, Bitcoin. okay, and said that, look, I'm setting up so his ambition was very big. I'm setting up an alternative financial system. Okay, an alternative money system of money. Okay, very big ambition. And so, this whole Bitcoin thing. And, then blockchain was the technology behind it, people realized and came out with it. The thing was that all this was fine, distributed nodes, consensus, all that we talked about. The question, is, as you rightly said, is who owns it? Okay, and the answer is everybody owns it. Okay, that sounds very good. But then if everybody owns it, who will take care of it? It needs computing power, it needs electricity, it needs energy. Who will take care? So Satoshi was a brilliant man. So he said, I will design an incentive mechanism. And the people who will take care of it by solving these mathematical puzzles, there was a way to do it, will get rewarded by a coin. And this coin was the Bitcoin. And these people who did all these things to get rewarded are what we call miners. Okay, so again, simplistically speaking, okay, that's why you cannot separate out coins and blockchain. We try and do that in the regulatory part that you spoke about. Governments say blockchain good, Bitcoin bad. Okay,
Doesn't work like that.
Blockchain good, crypto bad. That's the basic concept, right? So please do blockchain, we will incentivize it. It is like saying economy is good, money is bad. Can't run an economy without money. Okay, you can't run a public blockchain without coins. You cannot. Number one. Number two, what happens with technologies? Any new technology, professor and everyone else, is the bad guys in the world first grab it. So if any technology, you take AI, most of the stuff happening in AI is actually bad stuff. Surveillance is that. You think about video cassettes. The reason VHS won over Beta is not because VHS was a better technology, but because VHS could be pirated. Beta could. Okay, and similarly, and so the same thing is true for blockchain, crypto today. That the bad guys are, but gradually we will all figure what to do. Final thing I would say, since you asked many questions, there's someone's phone which I think is creating this problem, but that's okay. The final thing I would say is, from a regulation viewpoint, yes, people have been going up and down, and I can think why. All these Bitcoin is very volatile, and so the governments are like, we can't have something which is so volatile, and so people are going different countries doing different things because, very frankly, I don't think anyone really understands it. Okay, but there are a few governments across the world, Japan, for example, few others who have created regulatory frameworks. Okay, put some of these technologies in sandboxes, so as to, and I think, and pretty much like you can regulate bank transactions, you can actually, because if you have regulated blockchain wallets, you can know Bitcoin wallets or crypto wallets, you can know when it's coming in, when it's going out, which bank account it is hitting. You can actually make tax revenue out of it. Okay, because it's another, it's not a currency, it's a trading instrument. Yeah. And so you can, like any other trading instrument, you can actually regulate it, you can actually tax it. Okay, you can actually make money out of it rather than just completely banning it. There are ways out. So anyway, I'll stop here. Lots more to say.
Yeah. Thank you. And it's also true that some of the things we cannot say it also, being a very public kind of a meeting. Now, sir, going forward, when we go to the intricacies of the blockchain, we also notice that there are a lot of shortcomings, as you correctly pointed out. Aspects on scalability part, aspects on the centralization. The world is running in a centralization, whereas blockchain talks about decentralization. Interoperability issues are there, and technology, as you correctly said, is even now at a nascent stage. Use cases are still not fully combined, and ownership issues and all that what we are discussing. Now, could you throw some more that has happened? There are countries which are adopting in a major fashion blockchain, including for their citizen initiatives. The UAE, Abu Dhabi, for example. There are a whole lot of countries. We know that European area also. If you could throw more light on it, what is the kind of shortcomings of blockchain and how it is trying to be still won over, and then use cases emerging from many of these markets?
Sure. So, artificial intelligence. Let me start with AI. When was AI, quote unquote, invented? Actually, people started talking about AI in the 1940s. Okay. And then, more work started happening on it in 1960s. I'm not sure whether you can hear me. Can someone tell me whether they can hear me or not?
Yes, some disturbance.
Okay, it had frozen. So yeah, sorry. So let me just repeat. If you think about technology and you take AI, for example, artificial intelligence, work started on AI in 1940s, 50s, 60s, depending on who you believe. Okay. And so AI is about 50 years old, 55 years old. Okay. The internet started, around 50, 60, in 60, 70, DARPA, World War II. Blockchain is 11 years old. Okay. I mean, 2008 was Bitcoin, but no one even registered it. Blockchain as a concept only happened in 2011 or so. Okay. It's 10 years. So it's very young. And if you were to go back to the internet when it was 10 years old, all it could do was one modem sound coming and, email coming after 2 hours. And then suppose you wanted to run Netflix on it at that time, what would happen to the internet? Okay. So that's our problem. The technology is at that stage right now, and we are trying to do huge things on it, which it is not ready. Okay. And like many other technologies, it will, advances will happen. It will get. So because of its relative infancy, many things there are many problems. I will not say all of them, but scalability is a big problem. I gave you the MasterCard, Visa, and the Bitcoin again. How do you scale something up, when you kind of have that? The interoperability is another huge problem. Okay, because everyone creates a coin. There are some 7,000 different coins right now. Blockchain A doesn't work with B. The interoperability protocols have not yet been written, etc. So all these problems exist. Having said that, there are still countries and companies which have managed to use what is available and create some great use cases. The example that I like to give is a small country called Estonia, which you might have heard of. And it's very interesting. Estonia, has pretty much put every record of its citizens on a blockchain-based network, whether it be financial records, whether it be voting records, whether it be health records, whether it be any other land records, whatever. And they are protected. They are virtually hack-proof. You can go and access. Someone else, if they want to access, need to take your consent. But because it's all there, if you want to, for example, want to set up a private limited company, it takes 3 minutes to do so. Okay, because everything is there. Okay. Or if voting, there are no voting booths in Estonia. Okay. So if you can manage to do that, you solve the trust problem. The reason why it takes time to set up a company in India, for example, is because trust but verify keeps on happening. Verify every document, every this thing, take it through its proper whatever verification loops. There you don't need. The other big example of a trusted is national identities.
Yes.
Our national identity systems, including in our country, are very prone to attack or prone to hacking or even prone to misuse potential. But if there was a consensus-driven mechanism, it's much more difficult to misuse it because someone would object. Okay, and similarly from a security etc. viewpoint. So these are some of the bigger use cases which have already been happening and can happen even with today's problems. But many things cannot happen. We'll have to wait until some of these problems, scalability, etc., get solved.
Thank you for explaining that in detail. And talking about digital transformation, since you're also a digital transformation expert, the world, when we look at the data, be it of enterprise resource planning implementations or, many of these implementations, when many of these digital transformation initiatives in organizations, including banks, they feel that it is the job of the technologists. There is a very big mindset issue, which has played spoil sport in the way implementations have panned out. It is not a talent issue. Even the so-called great multinationals with all the best and breed guys have failed in it. In fact, SAP says that more than 70% of their thing is actually a failure. And when you go use many of these technologies, especially the ones which are still in the fringes and not very proven, or rather, still use cases emerging kind of technologies, whether whoever implements it, whether it is a fintech or entrepreneurs or the company themselves, which they inbound talent. There is a very big disconnect that comes from the mindset point of view, or than the metal point of view. Right. And how do you tackle, since you are also a digital transformation evangelist, how do you tackle these issues, sir? And what are the best ways to do that? And because, when we conduct trainings, we often bump across these things, to even make the so-called leaders assimilate that you also have a great role of championing effort to play in those things. So,
Absolutely.
if you could throw
No,
some.
no. So this is you're absolutely bang on, and this is frankly the area I spend my most time on and work with most of the global and Indian companies on. I will say two things. Number one, digital transformation, professor, is nothing but business transformation. They are not different. It is just because for any business transformation, by default today, you have to use digital tools and technologies. You call it digital transformation. And therefore, the owner of the digital transformation, because it's a business transformation, has to be the owner of the business, not the owner of the technology. And the owner of the business is actually the CEO or the managing director or the board or entrepreneur who owns the business. If you kind of go and look at business transformation use cases across the world, there's a very simple, the ones which have succeeded are owned by the CEO. The CEO becomes the CDO, Chief Digital Officer. Okay, they are not different. And so the first thing to understand, and I'm saying this in very small because we spend a lot more time on this, but is that digital transformation is nothing but business transformation. Number two, and therefore has to be owned by the CEO. It's not the CTO's job. It's not the CIO's job. It's not their job. And in most cases, the boards would give 30-40% weightage of the MD's incentive to the transformation, basis on transformation, not basis on performance. Okay, that's only when it happens. Number two, what is the essence? What is digital transformation? What does it mean? Everyone has different words for it. Everyone is different. Something they are ERP systems of SAP. No, that's not digital transformation. Digital transformation, in my book, literally in my book, the Practice Book, is three things. Okay, and I liken it to the Hindu holy trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. You might. One is business models, the different way to serve the customer, and each sector can have its own models. And like Brahma, business models create new businesses. Brahma creates new worlds, and there's a full chapter on business models in my book and how to work on it, etc. But you need a certain basic level of customer experience to preserve the business. And that Vishnu, the preserver, is of customer experience. And customer experience expectations of customers of every industry have changed. Okay, and how do you use technology to meet the new customer journey rather than the customer journey your organization was designed for?
Yes.
Is actually the second part of it. And the third and final is that there's only one destroyer of all digital transformations. Okay, and Shiva the destroyer is actually us and our capability and our culture. See, Shiva or Mahesh never destroyed anything for the heck of destroying. He destroyed to recreate. He taught us hundreds of thousands of years back that if you want to create anything new, first you have to destroy the old. We human beings who don't listen to him want to create new, but want to keep the old also. Okay, and that never happens, cannot happen. And that is why digital transformations fail. And so the last thing I would say is that as I study digital transformation, I find that they can succeed for many reasons, successful ones. But the failures have only failed for one reason. And that's our Lord God Shiva.
Okay. Yeah, I remember having read that in your book. In fact, I read your book to a couple of times, and both the trinity of the Hindu mythology, what you're telling, as well as the 10 Commandments of the Moses of successful digital transformation and how you're visualizing it. So nice of you to have pointed out on that. Sir. Talking about this end-to-end digital journey, that's a fad, especially in BFSI kind of this one with all kinds of digital engines and so on. And a lot of fintechs are also disrupting the entire space of digitalization and, digital business models. How do you see this adoption, especially of blockchain adoption by many of these fintech entrepreneurs? Because when I see the kind of Indian Patent Office data, a lot of patenting is happening in this fintech space, medtech space, edutech space, and all that. Isn't it? So, how do you see this since you're also, in the ecosystem?
Sure. So, upfront, Professor, I do not, I work very less in the fintech sector. Okay. Because I've not, unlike all of you, I've not worked in a bank and known its intricacies. I don't even attempt. Okay. Because it'll be useless trying to, so I try and keep myself close to what I know better. And so my knowledge is fairly shallow. Okay, in the overall fintech part of fintech space and stuff, which is sure, I mean, I do keep abreast, and I think, frankly, I think the maximum amount of innovation amongst all sectors is actually happening in the fintech space, in my opinion. Okay, amongst all, and if you think of payments as a sector, I mean, payments has been totally disrupted, totally changed. I mean, our grandfathers would not recognize how they will not be able to pay anyone today. Okay, because so totally changed. Okay. Similarly, banking, just pure banking. Okay, and the old repeated thing of I went to my bank branch only once last year, or you don't need to go to a bank branch, and all those things. Having said that, I do think there are still massive inefficiencies in the BFSI sector. I spent half my time in the UK, as you know. UK is supposed to be one of the centers of fintech, okay, London in the world. But I can tell you the inefficiencies in the banking system there will make all of us actually very proud in India. Actually, I mean, I was just surprised. The era, and so every inefficiency presents an opportunity. Okay, and the reason why fintechs are coming up is because it's the biggest sector, it's the richest sector, it is the one of the most inefficient sector, and every inefficiency presents a opportunity, and that's why you see all of these patents. So I'll keep myself at that level rather than go into more intricate details which I don't know of, but that's why Stripe is valued at $95 billion. Okay, because they solved the problem of linking of e-commerce payments. Okay, which was a big problem for everyone. Okay, but that huge inefficiency, and they solved that, and it's now at $95 billion. That's the reason. It took me, Mr. Krishna Kumar, 4 months to have a bank account in the UK. Okay, and but until those 4 months, it took me about 3.5 hours to open a bank account with a digital bank, challenger bank. Okay, because they scoured my credit data from Experian, from Equifax, from LinkedIn, from Amazon. They saw how my transactions were. Okay, and managed to give me a bank account immediately while the banking system took what it took. So, these inefficiencies is what gives rise to fintech.
Right. Yeah, you're right. So talking about the use cases, you also already cited regarding the how see for example the power sector, how the grid operates, right, where blockchain can be thought of, or in adult franchise in the voting part, especially in a country like India where the election commission, the way it runs the election is humongous. But then, if at all technology and the bogusness can be sorted out, nothing like it, isn't it? So, I mean, there are a lot of possibilities of use of blockchain much beyond into the citizen services also.
Yes.
And can you throw some light on that,
Sure.
sir, including that
Let me give,
grid?
yeah. Let me give you an example, a couple of examples. Grid is a good one. So, electricity is very centralized. Think about it. There's one power station in one place. And then from there, you have all these wires and the distribution, transmission, etc., etc. And it reaches there. There are losses on the way, but it reaches there. And, this is fine for cities, densely populated areas. The economics work. The moment you go to villages or sparsely populated areas, the economics don't work because putting a distribution system to reach and therefore the densely populated areas subsidize the sparsely populated areas. Now it's always been known that the best way to serve sparsely populated areas is to have generate electricity where it is being used. Everyone knows, nothing to do with blockchain there. It is about solar energy or about biogas or whatever it is. The problem is that how do you make that economic model work? Okay, and so, for example, in a village, if you remember my slide, there were these houses with,
on top of the houses,
so
solar panels.
Solar panels. So what will happen is my house might generate surplus electricity, your house might have deficient electricity. Okay, and so these microgrids are necessary. That from my house to your house, if you have deficient electricity, will flow to your house, and some way payment will be given to me. It can be done through multiple ways. Blockchain is a great way to do it because through smart contracts, it can immediately actuate and send you power, and a digital currency, say electrocoin, automatically can be sent from your wallet to mine. Okay, so many units of electricity, there's many electricals. So you can create a microgrid where electricity becomes therefore tokenized. And think about it, this electrocoin can actually become a CSR tool for a profit-making company like, say, SBI. Rather than giving 2% of its profits as cash to whatever and whatever, suppose you were to be giving electrocoin, you are actually donating electricity, okay, back to the village. So, and these kind of blockchain-based microgrids, therefore, are one great use case. They are being done in multiple parts of the world. They are coming up. There are similar examples in agriculture. Let me give you a very quick example of education, for example. Education, such you would know the amount of NPAs in education, okay, and the loan, because most of the people will take education loan but will use it for something else because it's lower rate of interest. And are you still there?
Floating around.
Yeah. Okay, back to you. Yeah. So education loans have lots of NPAs. The reason is most degrees are fraudulent. Okay. People will bring degree, take education loan, whatever. Multiple countries in the world. I'm not talking necessarily about India. But now what has started happening is that you can have education degrees on a blockchain. And many universities have started doing that. And unhackable, authentic, true. You give public key to whoever, and you have a private key, and they can see the degree. All these transcripts which we give whenever children go to US schools, okay, why do we give them? Because they don't trust us. So they say, get so much, get it stamped by notary, do this, do that. All that will go. Okay, if you can have a, so these are the kind of use cases that you can have.
Okay, so this academic credit bank, something Modi has inaugurated, is it the same?
Not really.
I'm very aware of it. Yeah, sorry.
It is not at the blockchain level, sir, but at least they are talking about a centralized credit bank now, but it can be thought through in the blockchain way also going forward, if at all they are able to bring in the technology. Yeah, good. Thanks for clarifying, Jaspreet. And now I just want to understand how this whole funding mechanism of blockchain works. Are these entrepreneurs able to get good funding? Because how costly is the technology? And the entrepreneurs who want to get onto the blockchains, just like the Zomatos of the world, to reach that level, you require a lot of funding, isn't it? So the going public is a very later affair, and require a startup stage garage-like funding. And how does that come about, sir? Are there good PE money flowing in, or?
No, not at this point of time. See,
Okay.
VC money flows in largely for proven business models. Okay. There are very few proven business models within blockchain. A blockchain wallet or exchange is one. Okay, so where you can buy and sell. Not blockchain, crypto exchanges is one. So Coinbase is the world's largest. Okay, and it recently went public. Okay, at a huge valuation, some billions of dollars, whatever. Okay. But other than that, there are very few. Now, again, two things. One is that what is happening is pretty much like AI. Blockchain is also becoming a cloud service. Okay, so blockchain as a service. So the Azure cloud and the Google cloud and the AWS cloud, you can actually go. You don't have to build stuff. Okay, you can take blockchain as a service and kind of have pretty much stuff ready. So the costs are not very high there. Second and last thing is, while the funding is much lower than in AI or in other technologies, there are actually not in India yet because the regulatory environment is still not very clear. But in multiple parts of the world, there are blockchain-only VCs.
Oh.
Yeah. So there are VCs in the US, in Israel, in UK, maybe in China, I don't know, who focus on only funding blockchain-based startups. And so there is a fairly vibrant ecosystem in those parts of the world. Not yet here. There are a few, but there are a few funds, especially person-driven funds, which are doing seed money in India, but very less.
Thank you. Now, since you're also working in the area of the future of work, I thought I'll quiz you on this. It is also predicted that the blockchains of the world will change the future of work, and the so-called digitalization or transformation initiatives which we are seeing. And they also talked about a concept of distributed autonomous organization. You call it as DAO in your book. Could you throw some more light on that, so that especially the future of work, there are a lot of people who are a bit scary of it. How things, many of this job, many jobs have already evaporated, as we all know, and how the
Sorry.
People have to reskill and
your voice broke. There was it got discontinued. Can you ask your question again, please?
Oh, you want me to ask the question again? Okay. Sorry. No, I was asking regarding the future of work. In his book Text Whisperer, he talks about the distributed autonomous organization, or what we call DAO. Can you throw some more light on that, so that the kind of future of work, as all of us would be really keen to know?
Okay. So look, whenever we talk about future of work today, we think work from home. Okay. Future of work ho gaya. Work from home. Okay. Work from home or work from anywhere actually is just one element of the future of work. There are many other things. There are collaboration tools. There are robots replacing human beings in certain parts, certain work related stuff. There is lifelong learning as a concept, which I think will become future of work. Where blockchains come in this whole thing is much more towards how organizations will be structured. And This DAO concept is not my original concept. It's been there. I borrowed it from people who've done it before about distributed autonomous organization or digital autonomous organization. Basically, without getting into, because it's kind of a bit of an esoteric concept. Okay, basically, if you think about blockchain, what are the words which come to mind? The words which come to mind are consensus. Word which come to mind is no single owner. Words which come to mind are immutability. Words which come to mind are smart contracts, etc. If you think about the way work is moving towards, you see work is becoming more democratic. Okay, much more decentralized. You can work from anywhere. Blockchains are decentralized. Work is decentralized. Blockchains don't have an owner. Going forward, the power of the CEO is becoming lesser and lesser. Okay, as the organizations become more, they say that going forward, it will move to an organization structure where instead of having one organization, many employees, there'll be one employee, many organizations. Okay, and so actually, blockchains, the conceptually, philosophically, are made for the way organization structures are moving towards. And the DAO is one demonstration of that. A DAO and is really a way an organization structuring where there is no CEO. Okay, policy is decided by code. The amount of work that you do, you get paid in a currency which can later be redeemed for other things. And based on, you can go work somewhere else, you can come here, work for only this much. When you complete something, a smart contract happens and you get your payment, etc. Very less, there are only very few companies which are experimenting with that. And a DAO is still, as I said, a very futuristic, esoteric concept. But it's coming in many, many different. I know legal firms which are working on this concept. I know other accounting services firm which are working around this concept of autonomous work, of decentralized work, and blockchain-based systems are being designed to make those happen. So that's really the concept of the DAO.
Thank you for clarifying that. The concept of the way the decentralized future of work would emerge. Yeah. Sir, I'm also tempted to ask, put questions which are asked in the chat boxes, and at the time of registration also, a whole lot of questions have come in from the various participants who have registered. So I thought I'll flag off some questions to you. But there are obviously many people who are asking questions on how to ensure that the data is not leaked but best protected. When the people access information simultaneously, is there a mechanism for restriction based on need-based approach in blockchain?
Okay, just before I answer this question, which I don't know the answer to be honest, so I will ask you to move to. I don't know everything about blockchain. I just wanted to say in 10 minutes, Professor, I'll have to move to another, since it's going to be 5:30. As I had said, 5:30, I have another meeting. Good. So I just wanted to flag off that time, and maybe you want to ask me another question, which I'll know a better answer to be very, very. I don't know the answer to this one.
I see. Okay. So, there's one more question which says that what is the impact of cost on user decision to adopt blockchain technology?
Impact of cost.
Yes.
See, it's use case to use case dependent. Again, I never say that anytime there is a problem, chalo, let's go get a blockchain solution to it. No. Okay. There are, we couldn't go through those slides. I have many more. There is a way to select which use cases or which problems can be solved using blockchain and which will not. And then obviously the ones which can be are the ones which can be solved in a faster, cheaper, more efficient way than non-blockchain technologies. And there are a few such where there's disintermediation involved, where multiple parties are sharing data. The invoicing thing, for example, if you think of how invoices are processed, they go from one intermediary to another, to another, to another, and it takes lots of time, etc. Now, is there a way invoicing can happen through a simultaneous authentication mechanism? Okay, so and it could actually be much cheaper and create much more efficiency. So It's very difficult to answer the question unless we are talking of specific use cases. And certain use cases, the costs will be too high. And then it just doesn't make sense to go with the block. You better go with another technology, another database technology, or something else.
There is one more specific question. It's again based on the trade finance thing, what we were discussing. One gentleman is asking, in case of LC bar bill negotiation by discounting, LC advising and acceptance, etc., is nowadays communicated through what is called as SFMS system. I think structured financial messaging system, equivalent of our SWIFT that is there in India.
Can I stop you? No, can I stop you here itself and say I would not know the answer?
I see. They're asking, being bankers, they're asking a lot of intricate questions. I know. Yeah.
Specific, right? And I'm not, as I said, I'm not
absolutely. I fully, understood that.
Sorry for being, but I thought we'd save some time by just letting
yes,
you know. Yes.
Correct. Absolutely. No, fully respect that, sir. And can you, sir, highlight how this 15 banks coming together through that Indian Banks Blockchain Infrastructure Company, what we can prognose in that, sir?
So look, I haven't followed that. I vaguely know that something like this has happened. Okay, over the past few months, since I spend more time in the UK than in India, so I kind of, sometimes you don't hear the news and you don't follow and whatever. The only thing I can tell you in very general terms is, I think that this is the only way to make things happen. Okay, each bank trying to do it separately, nothing will happen. Okay, so the fact that there is a consortium which has been formed, okay, will actually help all of you to take use cases, identify use cases which are mutual problems, interbank settlements, remittances, multiple use cases which are between banks. And, you can actually, I don't know whether there's a technology partner here. I would take a technology partner also, or a couple of technology partners, okay, and, start solving certain problems one by one, because this is the right mechanism. As I had said, somewhere in the middle, blockchain is an ecosystem play. It's not a single company play. Okay, and the fact that there's an ecosystem is great, but I don't know too much of the details there, to be honest.
So one more question regarding blockchain technology. I mean, what are the other technologies that can, work alongside blockchain?
Good question. See, no technology works in isolation. None. Okay, if you say most times, see, the way you should be looking at technology, as I said, is tools to solve a problem. Okay, and the problem could be growth related, could be efficiency, whatever be the problem. Okay. Now, whenever you're trying to solve a problem, it's 90% of the time it's a combination of technologies. Okay, so for example, BIoT is one word which is used, which is blockchain IoT. Okay. So IoT produces, you have sensors, say for anything you have sensors.
I know. Yeah.
Produces lots of data.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this data, perhaps in certain cases, can be best, quote unquote, stored on a blockchain-based architecture for its, for sharing it in the right way, for permissioning, for authentication, preventing hacking, etc. And it could be, the insights could be drawn using IoT, using AI. So, you have all of these three coming in to solve a particular problem. Okay, they're agricultural sensors, or it could be anything. If, for example, if you take my best example for this is an autonomous car. An autonomous car cannot work with one technology.
Absolutely.
It has everything. Any technology you can think of, they all come together in that one thing, and therefore technologies always work best together. They don't work at all in isolation.
And how are the big tech firms like an IBM or all those labs of Watson Analytics of the world are processing themselves into the when you say prognose into say next 5 years and all using blockchain? Are they?
They're very active. I think the two big companies which took the lead were actually Microsoft and IBM.
Okay.
Microsoft took a more open source approach, and it kind of worked very well with Ethereum. Okay. IBM took a more proprietary approach, and it created its own own thing called the Hyperledger Fabric. Okay, and it took a more. In fact, IBM then joined up with a consortium called R3, which was a banking consortium, a global banking consortium around blockchain, and they started creating technologies focused on banking, and they took a different approach. Facebook is taking another approach. Amazon is now started. So all of these are getting into it, but they're still at experimental phase. What they're also doing is that they are.
Sir, I think in between we lost.
So
we lost you for a minute, sir, actually. Yeah.
No worries. As I was saying that all of them are adopting it, but at an experimental phase. Many of them are including it is a part of the cloud that I mentioned earlier, blockchain as a service. Okay.
Nice.
And multiple things. Every company is doing different things. Facebook is trying to get into currency, and everyone is taken some slice and is working on it, but they are heavily into it.
Okay.
Professor, I have 3 minutes more.
Thank you, sir.
I have a global
I know. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jaspreet ji, for coming on board and clarifying all our questions and doing a wonderful presentation. I'm sure for all the people who have joined today, near about 200 around people to come forward, they would have got money's worth of their time and the exchanges that you have done with them. Thank you so much for coming on behalf of SBIL and each of my faculty members, the director and the team, technology team, and all the marketing team who had sent out this particular news to all the people. Thank you so much for coming on board, sir. And I know that you have a meeting to attend. So it's our pleasure that anytime when the situation permit, you come and visit our institute also. We'll be very all too happy to engage.
And I would recommend the TED talk that he gave in Chennai. People should see in very lucidly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So all the participants, sir is also a very good author, and that particular book is, you can pursue for knowing more about blockchain, and also many of his tech talks is available in the YouTube. It's in your interest, you can pursue with many of the questions which is not getting answered. You would have answered it there already.
You live in London. You live in London or in Delhi?
When I'm in India, I'm in Gurgaon. Right now, I'm in Gurgaon.
Okay.
When I'm in the UK, I'm in Cambridge.
Cambridge. Okay.
Thank you so much, Jaspreet.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Happy to connect with you.
Thank you.
And thanks to all the participants who have tuned in today. Please send in your feedback in the chat boxes, and so much, who was the learning in the frontier team of blockchain, you would have understood, how it is going to radicalize not just banking and financial services. It is, a technology of the future, and we will talk about adult franchise or a grid system for power, you name it. It is going to perhaps find its way into various facets of our life. It's the frontier areas of things, and as the speaker said, not that many of these technologies work in isolation. It works in tandem with so many other technologies, including the AI, ML, and so on, IoT, and so on. So nice of you to have come forward and tuned in. And today's discussion, I'm sure would have been a lot of takeaways for you from this discussion. We had also, sincere thanks to Dr. Shoma for comparing in this, for giving the welcome address to our director, and also our technology team headed by Mr. Manoj and Ishita ma'am for sending out to all of you the material about this particular event, because we were all generally very busy when back-to-back programs are happening for banks, into leadership space. We keep training people. And so nice of you, to each one of you, to have joined. So we have opened it out for all our alumni. So it's an alumni connect as far as we see it, and I'm sure that many would have been benefited from this, since it's a very closer to heart theme for many people in the financial sector. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for organizing this, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. We are having a lot of compliments on the chat also. Thank you so much.